day long. Like I have one, I was just looking this morning on this Facebook group of kids with ADHD, and I'm looking at this, and um, these kids have these symptoms of like, oh, this kid's doing this, is doing this. I'm like, I can tell you what their brain patterns look like right here just from hearing the story. Like, here's how you would support a kid like that. And I think for you, where the value is if you had that data in front of them, you could say, look at your kid has creative patterns, but they get overwhelmed. How can we find a school that supports creativity but allows for adaptive learning strategies? How could we design an IEP that does that, or a 504? How could we, you know, put them into hobbies that does that? Because you can see here's the roadmap right here on the brain scan. And I think when people start to realize that these patterns, these diagnoses are gifts. Depression is a gift. Anxiety is a gift. Learning disorders are a gift. ADHD is a gift. And certainly the thing we're all talking about now is neurodivergence in general can be quite a gift if it's supported. The problem is that, the current environments don't support it.
All
It's
right.
like we want you to sit still, focus, and pay attention and do your homework. It's like, well, yeah, but that doesn't work if I'm, a kid who has trouble with sustained attention. I need a different environment. So a lot of my message is that it's like we want to see what's going on in the brain scan, yes, so we can support them, but in reality, these things are such gifts. Like we need to take this kid out of their ecosystem and put them in one that supports them, before it's too late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of what I'm seeing with the families I'm working right now is just anxiety, whether it's
Yeah.
personal anxiety or school anxiety, and um, kids with anxiety usually aren't very good about communicating why, because they don't have the insight. Like, I don't know
Yeah,
why.
yeah.
I'm just anxious. I don't want to go.
So this would be a fascinating conversation and would be to say, okay, through the lens of brain scan analysis, we've done 50,000 brain scans at clinics all over the world. We've looked at scans from Hollywood actors to, drug addicts to suicides and everything in between. How does anxiety show up? Anxiety shows up in a dozen different ways, okay? And when you say my kid has anxiety, I need to know how does that show up? And so again, this is where you can be the hero here as you say, okay, how does that show up? Is it showing up in a social context where you feel awkward? You might say something stupid. You feel uncomfortable in social situations. Well, that's a moo rhythm. Moo rhythm is like what we see in people with autism. It's a ingredient in autism. Okay, it's not the whole thing, but it's an ingredient. And if we support that moo rhythm with things like lots of time with animals, technical work, maybe in computers or data-driven type of areas, and a lot of one-on-one time instead of big groups, you're going to find a whole group of people just like you who feel quote unquote anxious, who have moo rhythms, and you're going to feel at home. That's going to be a good place for you. There's also people who are classically sort of over aroused. That's your garden variety anxiety. Frankly, probably people that don't even come see you because that's kind of doable. People kind of figure that out pretty easy. But I think what you're going to end up seeing is things like low processing speed, where kids are overwhelmed cognitively. They have too much coming at them and they can't process all the information. And we try to do things to slow them down, but it makes it worse because we actually need to speed them up. Or you're going to see kids who have like disorganized thoughts, and maybe that's why they're anxious because they're like everything's too chaotic in their environment and they're not organized. So that's a flavor of anxiety. And then the last but not least is the overwhelmed pattern where people actually their brains shut down as the demands go up. So you say, okay, in third and fourth grade, little anxiety, fifth and sixth grade, it really kicked up when we had to start changing classes and whatever. Oh, that's the overwhelm pattern. The overwhelm pattern needs predictability, needs consistency. If we're changing classes all the time and one day we're on purple, the next day we're on blue, and we're all over the place. And then we got a chaotic home where mom's divorced and dad has these rules and I have this rule. And, I don't know who's taking me to football practice. That doesn't work with the overwhelm pattern. We need to change that. So when we talk about anxiety, I could look at every of the 12 biomarkers that we look at and show you how each one of those markers can manifest as anxiety. And they're all drastically different in the way that they manifest, in the way that you treat them, and the way they respond to medications. So I think those are really fascinating conversations to have because it's not language that we normally use. And we could do that with ADHD. We could do that with OCD. We could do it with anxiety, depression. Yeah, probably all of those. And it would cover like 90% of people.
Yeah. No, that's really good because when you're talking about anxiety and is it overwhelm or is it,
Yeah.
internal chaotic, a lot of times that looks exactly like ADHD and now you're treating ADHD, but it's not, it's anxiety.
Check this out, Dan. Yes, last week we had a woman who came in and she, like a lot of women are lately, I don't know if you're seeing this, but are sort of identifying as this late diagnosed ADHD woman. Okay. That's her like, identity. She goes, "Oh yeah, it's probably just my ADHD, but I want to talk to you about this and this and this." And I'm looking at her brain scan. I was like, she doesn't have ADHD. I was like, how am I going to tell her this? So I'm looking at it and I said, okay, this is going to challenge semantics, your worldview, psychiatry, but I need you to just kind of step back and understand what's going on here. You don't have ADHD. You have overwhelmedness, okay, where your brain slows down under load. So when you come home and there's nobody there and there's a lot of uncertainty, am I going to get married again? Is there someone in my house? It's causing you to be overwhelmed. You don't have ADHD, okay? There's a lot of details in between that I left out. But the key to it was, and this is really key, it's not single patterns, it's the combination of patterns. And so she also had perfectionism patterns that drive a lot of negative self-talk. And so she would get overwhelmed, and then her perfectionism would kick in, and she would have to like do a whole bunch of stuff. And that's what she was calling ADHD, was this I always have to be doing. Well, you have to be doing not because you have ADHD, but because you're a perfectionist and you can't stand that the house isn't clean or that this task isn't done and whatever. But you're being treated with stimulants that aren't helping either one of those things. Neither one, you know? And so when you see that and they're like, oh my God, you're right. Like I just beat myself up all day. That's why I do all these things. And I've got 10 tabs open because I should be doing more. And it's like, no, that's your brain telling you that you should be doing it. It's not real. It's not right. And then you're overwhelmed by all the stuff you feel like you have to do. So if you approach that kid, that teen, that adult as the problem is perfectionism and productivity guilt instead of ADHD, you're going to do so much better. If you keep treating that person as if they have ADHD, yeah, they might be a little more organized, but it's never going to get to the core of their issue. The core of their issue is their negative self-talk. And you can see it right in the brain scan. If I can tell you if someone's suicidal just by looking at their brain scan, I can see perfectionism. That's easy. That's easy,